What 5 stoves does a former CIA officer have for a grid down situation, for camping, for emergency preparedness? I'm going to show you right now. My name is Jason Hanson. I am said former CIA officer, New York Times bestselling author of Spy Secrets Can Save Your Life. I've got 7 kids. I have a lot of food storage. If we have a grid down scenario, or should I say when we have a grid down scenario, you got to be able to cook your survival food. You've got to be able to boil water if you need to. You may want to take a hot bath every now and then. When I say hot bath, you're not a real bath, but you know what I mean. You're using a cloth to wash yourself. So I have 5 propane stoves. When it comes to stoves and grills, I'm going to show you all 5 now, and I love propane. The reason I love propane is you can store it almost indefinitely. So it doesn't matter if it's 100 degrees outside, it doesn't matter if it's 10 degrees outside. Propane stored in the back of my shed is going to be fine for pretty much ever. So I'm a big fan of using propane when it comes to your stoves, when it comes to being able to cook your survival food. The first stove we're going to start with is one of my favorites for its simplicity. This right here is the Coleman single burner propane stove. The way it works is you take one of these green cans of propane, you put it here in the base, and then you screw on. This is a single burner stove. You can put the pan right on top of there. Here's where I recently used this. You can still see the marshmallows on top of it. My kids, they wanted to do a s'mores. They wanted to start a fire. It was like 100 degrees outside, kind of like it is today. And I said, well, no, we're not doing a fire because I don't want to stand out there and watch it and sweat to death. So I lit my Coleman single burner propane stove, and they roasted marshmallows on this stove. The only downside was some fell off and see the sneakiness, but great little stove, doesn't take up a lot of space, doesn't weigh a lot. So I recommend having this for some kind of grid down scenario. Let me put this right here. Number 2 stove is this bad boy right here. This is from a company called Stport. This is another stove which I've owned forever and I've used a lot on camping trips. This one, as I smash my fingers, this one is 2 burners. So I can obviously cook more food. I've got 7 kids, so I do have a lot of stoves for that reason too, so we can cook multiple things. And stove runs on propane. If you're using propane stoves, make sure you buy the adapter that hooks up to the 20-gallon tanks or the 20-pound tanks. Because these stoves, just the regular hookup is for the green cans, but you want to be able to hook up to the 20-pound tanks. So buy that adapter. It's like 15, 20 bucks. But anyway, I like this Stport. I've used it many times, never had a problem. I should probably clean it a little bit, but you can see that it has been used. So that is stove number 2. And the reason I have so many stoves is because you got to have backups to the backups to backups. What if one breaks in a crisis situation? You don't want to be up the creek without a paddle. This one is AKA my wife's stove. Anything that is cuisine art is way too fancy and nice for me. But this is another propane stove courtesy of my wife. You can open it. I've never even actually used this stove. This is one we haven't used. So it's got a decent amount of space up here, enough to cook a little bit, so should work fine. And I actually got to test it out and use it. We're going to go camping this summer, which we will, but I have not tested or used it yet, so I don't know how well it works. That's stove number 3. Stove number 4 is up here. This is the Camp Chef. Camp Chef, good stove. We usually use this stove for canning. So my wife cans some awesome salsa. I love salsa. And she makes it on the stove. So while the stove is great, this thing eats propane like there's no tomorrow. So if it's a grid down situation, you've got your tanks of propane and you want to make sure they last, you're using one of these other stoves versus the Camp Chef, which just, like I said, sucks down propane. This is stove number 4. Now we're going to move and go over to see the final and 5th, well, it's a grill, but let's go check that out. The final and 5th way I have to cook survival food for my family is a traditional normal Weber grill. Is it Weber or Weber? I believe it's Weber. But anyways, I can't take this off like a magician. It doesn't come off that fast or that way. But this is, as I said, just a normal Weber grill. Now I'm going to say Weber grill. And it's got plenty of room for hot dogs, hamburgers. I actually use this grill all the time for making hot dogs and hamburgers for my family. And you can turn on whatever burner you want. This one lasts a long time. So this propane lasts forever when I'm cooking stuff here for the family. And you should have a grill anyway. So now you know the 5 grills / propane stoves I have for my family. If you only have one, buy more because, well, the grid is unfortunately going to go down because it is so bad, the infrastructure in this country. And because as a former CIA officer, I can tell you multiple foreign adversaries are attacking our grid and want to shut it down. So get some propane stoves and most importantly, subscribe.